Hi guys, welcome back to another episode of Sin and Tonic. Happy New Year! I hope everyone had a wonderful Christmas. Today's story is that of the Boozing Barber. Now let's go. Sin and Tonic! In memory of the victims today, there is no alcohol. I'm having a cup of tea. And we've got 2 mince pies left. So I'm going to have a mince pie while I chat to you. And also the last of I got some Christmas chocolate. We got some Christmas chocolate bits. We had some treats from America. So I'm going to have that while I talk to you. Cup of tea. Is it still too hot? Oh no. Perfect. Now, the reason that I have chosen today's case is because... One sec. It was quite tricky. You could find lots of Christmas crimes, true crime stories, sadly. But I couldn't find loads of true crime stories for New Year's Eve or day. And any that I did sort of find were a bit done. So, and maybe this one is, I don't know, but I didn't think so. So then I thought, let's do a story that's either the murder weapon is either fireworks, oh, my set's falling apart, or alcohol. And I found this case, and I found it probably, maybe not, because sometimes I do get like a pulsing vein, probably the most frustrating case I have read. Literally like reading stuff and going, what? Oh my God, really? Yeah. So, hold on to your hats. Oh, shut up. That's good. Mince pie and a cup of tea. Oh, you'll see why I'm not drinking in this episode. Also, as you probably are aware by now, I get like the Christmas blues. So when Christmas is over, not happy at all. I go like into a bit of a lull. Quite miserable. Not gonna lie, I don't like it at all. Every year. But this year hasn't been too bad. Touch wood. Probably because I've eaten my weight in mince pies. Why else? New mug. For Christmas. Very lovely, beautiful. Almost a bit William Morrissey, not sure if it is. And a new scarf from Paul. What a love. And I thought I'd wear this today because I'm in mourning for Christmas. I don't like New Year's Eve. Sorry. So I'm wearing blue and black velour. So I'm comfortable. I mean, you know, I'm comfortable. There's nothing to moan about. So I'm going to get over myself. And making this video will definitely cheer me up. She says, as she's about to embark on a true crime story. But being in your company is always beautiful. Shall we get on with it? Shut up, Debbie. Today's story takes place in Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada. This story is about... Anyway, it is about Gilbert Paul Jordan, born Elsie. Not his first name, his surname. He was born on the 12th of December in 1931 to Jack and Winifred. For our story today, I'm going to use the surname that he gave himself, which is Jordan. I'm going to call him that, Jordan. And yeah, there is not written much. Who am I? Yoda? There's not much written about his child, or it's conflicting, so I'm not going to go into too much depth about it, but it doesn't seem like he was really abused or any of the usual things that we associate with serial killers as such. But his parents divorced when he was quite young. He then ended up living with his father, so he didn't live with his mother, he lived with his father. So I guess that's unusual, I suppose, especially back then, I would say, but I might be wrong there. And he still kept in contact with his mother though, so she didn't abandon them. She was a part of their lives. He was one of 3 children, I think 2 brothers. He made some comment later on about not talking about his childhood because he didn't want to upset his brothers, but his brothers would later go on to say that there was no trouble, there was no abuse. So difficult to know, and it's a long time ago. So we have to take all of that with a pinch of salt. Oh, milk pie. Oh, sorry. I want to eat it while my tea's still hot, you see. Dilemmas. Seems like he was bullied. His nickname was Chub, lovely, and at school. And it was said that he was shy and withdrawn, quiet, and he didn't have friends. He didn't make friends very easily, and that continued on into his adulthood as well. He dropped out of school in the 8th grade, and it is thought that his very heavy drinking began at around this time. And at 18, he already had served or been given a 1-year sentence for stealing a car. He is becoming a naughty person. And he just continued along that path, sadly, and it became thick and fast. Spoiler alert, never freaking ended. So he then got this massive rap sheet. Is that what you call it? I shall read out some of the things. Hit and run. Oh my God, I did that like an old person. Stop it, can read. Hit and run. Oh, that's awful. Possession of heroin. Oh, drunk driving. And theft. But not just like one occasion of these things. So he was constantly getting into trouble for these things often. He also got the reputation of being the town drunk. Okay, so when I said heavy drinking, I was not lying to you. He would end up drinking on a daily basis, every single day, the equivalent of 50 shots of vodka. What? Oh, that's just crazy, isn't it? So he was an alcoholic. And he quickly became also addicted to sleeping with women. So he would get massively drunk. He would like the people that he was sleeping with, women, to be massively drunk as well. And he would always entice them with a lot of alcohol, drugs, and a good time, basically. And then he would sleep with them. And he would always mostly target Indigenous women and women that needed either money, prostitutes, really vulnerable women. Didn't like this bit of the story, but put it in there for reference of what a scumbag he is. So in 1961, when he's 30 years old, he is arrested for kidnapping. Okay, it's a bit grim. I didn't want to, and couldn't find much information about it, but he was arrested for kidnapping a 5-year-old girl, and there's no info on what happened to her, but by the time they found him with her, she was quite a long way from home, so he'd had her for a while. So he was arrested for kidnapping. She was an Indigenous child, and she had been taken from her reserve, and this is the first time when it's just, okay, so the vein will start to go, slowly but surely, it will be going. So the case against him, against this kidnapping, and all I can imagine in lots of these cases, and this was also brought up later on, was that because they were the children, this child and these women were Indigenous, poor, and prostitutes. Not the 5-year-old girl, but in general, this was the people that were involved in these cases. They almost were dispendable, and it was like the police were not wasting their time on these cases. Like, oh, so that's just horrible, and I don't like it. But that's what seemed to be happening here. So this case was postponed indefinitely. So nothing came from it. So he'd kidnapped a 5-year-old girl from her home. God knows what else had happened, and we'll deal with that later. When? Never. He wasn't a happy soul. And I can imagine that in lots of these cases, the perpetrators rarely are, and it's not an excuse, but they've often not had very happy childhoods and lives themselves. He also, as an adult, didn't have a good relationship with his mother because of his heavy drinking. She was very religious, so this alcoholism, heavy drinking, was an issue. And yeah, so when he was at mum's house, no drinking allowed, but the relationship was frayed and there was a lot of tension, so he wasn't a happy person. On the 3rd of March in 1962, Jordan would pick up 2 women and he would take them to Cole Harbour, and they started to drink heavily. One of the women felt yig. She felt really unwell, too much alcohol, don't blame her. And she hopped out of the car to get some fresh air and because she just felt really sick. And he took that opportunity to drive off with the other woman and go and rape her. This guy. Okay, so in April of that year, he then goes to court for the rape charge and 2 counts of theft. He's just always being bad, doing bad stuff. So he's always got something going on. So he's in court for that. When he's in the courtroom, he gives the judge the Nazi salute. Oh, can you believe it? So he just has no regard for the law, for rules, for anything really, other humans, nothing. Just some people are just broken beyond repair. This guy is that. So he then got sentenced for being in contempt of court, because that's you can't do that. What? And he was sentenced to 6 months in prison for being in contempt of court. But later on, the charges of the rape charge, that just was he was acquitted for it. And then he got 2 years for the theft. So, okay, 2 years for that. He then went on, get this, to appeal his 2-year conviction, and he won. So then he was just a free man. So he won. He was out. He, despite his alcoholism and awful behaviour, he managed to hold down jobs. So he was a hard worker. So it was written that he just was incredibly hardworking, and that occasionally he wouldn't turn up to work because he was either pissed or nicking something or raping somebody. But yeah, he managed to hold down jobs like in lumber yards and places like that. And then he went on to do like investment banking. That sounds bizarre, but his father was in the banking trade, and I guess he must have taken some sort of, maybe he just tried to straighten himself out and he spoke to his dad, I don't know, but he did have a really good knack for it, and he actually became really wealthy. Good and bad, because he never stopped drinking. So becoming really wealthy when you are an alcoholic or a drug addict, it just doesn't feel like it's going to end well, because you're just going to have even more money to spend on your habit that's killing you. Now we're going to go to January the 17th in 1965, and this is where it gets beyond spicy. All of Jordan's previous behaviour, and there was a lot of it. I don't know if I've painted the picture well enough. I hope I have. But this guy, from his late teenage years into his 30s, has just been consistently causing mayhem, rape, sexual assault, theft, just very, very bad and constant. This was just his life. Things took a turn for the very, very worst in January of 1965. This would be when he would claim his first victim. Jordan would meet and spend the night in a motel with a woman called Ivy Rose Roosevelt. What a nice name. This evening did not go well. She was found dead the next day in that same hotel room, naked. When they did Ivy's autopsy, it would reveal that her blood alcohol was 0.51. We're going to have to talk about blood alcohol because otherwise it won't make any sense. So let me just get the figures for you. That is huge alcohol poisoning, basically. So her death was then ruled an accident because they just thought she'd accidentally drunk too much alcohol and poisoned herself to death. Sadly, it does happen. And before this, nobody had ever heard of alcohol being used as a murder weapon. So why would anyone think anything other than an accident at this point, to be fair? Blood alcohol, let's go. You learn something new every day, because I did not know all this. So when your blood alcohol is 0.04 to 0.06, you start to feel relaxed. So for me, that's like one gin. If I've had a gin, maybe not even finished it, halfway through. Nice. 0.8. What? Sophie, come along. 0.08 is then a slight blurring of vision. 2 gins. Then we move on to point 13 to point 15, which is major loss of judgment and control of your body. Crikey, okay, 4 or 5 gins for me. Maybe 6, to be fair. Then we move on to the scary stuff. So 0.25 to 0.30, you would need help to walk and you would be really sick. Probably really sick. And you could pass out, all that sort of stuff. So you're dangerous here. And you possibly could be unwell enough to die at that point, between 0.25 and 0.30, excuse me. When we then get to 0.35 to 0.40 and above, this is when it is most dangerous and you are likely to lose consciousness and possibly die. So above 0.35 or 0.440, 0.40, I don't know what. Excuse me if I said that all completely wrong, but you know what I mean. So with 0.51 alcohol in her blood, that's just, yeah, so she died from alcohol poisoning. Awful. Jordan moves on. He is arrested twice in one day in 1969 for drunk driving. So he got arrested for drunk driving, I don't know, got told off, and then got back in a car. Fabulous. Nothing works. You know, you need to do something else with this guy. It's not working. And then in 1971, he's charged with performing lewd acts in public. And again, the charges were then dismissed. So they had, what are they called? Witnesses and things like that. But then again, it got dismissed. Did they just not want to deal with the dude? I honestly don't know. I don't know. We've got a little list here of his life. 1972, married somebody called Renona Mary. What did she see in him? He then became physically and verbally abusive and the marriage would only last for 3 years. 1973, he is charged with indecent exposure. This time, the charges are dropped. 1974 is the first time in his freaking life that the court are like, oh, maybe we should try and do something about this fella, okay? Right, so he's done enough of this crap now, and he was charged with 2 counts of sexual assault. Again, the Crown wanted to have Jordan written up as a dangerous sexual offender, so that would have, implications. He'd be on a list. I don't know what happens in Canada there, but, that's what they wanted to happen. And his lawyer managed to convince them, the court, that wasn't necessary. There's been countless attempts to have him convicted of rape, sexual assault, lewd acts in public. Were they not seeing all of this? I don't know. It makes me angry. He served 1 year for these sexual assaults at that point, and then he was released on parole. He convinced them that he should be released from prison, and he was. Again, all of his sentences are always... He never carries out his full sentence. He always is let out. Has he got the gift of the gab? I don't know. What is this guy? Anyway, so he's out on parole. And then, in 1965, 75, he kidnaps a female patient from a psychiatric hospital and he takes her away and he rapes her. What the actual... Good one. Releasing on parole. Good one. The vein. When this came to trial, you're like, right, okay, so seriously, what, 10 years now? Let's give him a proper sentence. He is a dangerous person. He's proving it time and time again. And the prosecutor in this case was, he said, he's the scariest man I've ever met. Quote, that's what he said. And yeah, I read this and thought, okay, this is when, because sometimes people offend and offend and offend and offend or whatever, and they are dangerous or, and then there's the one time, like the straw that broke the camel's back, and they're like, okay, you are freaking dangerous, so now you're going to get 10 years, 15 years. That sometimes happens, and I was thinking that would happen here. Oh, no. He got 26 months. Oh, round of applause. Has he got special powers or something? I don't know. I'm going to have a bit of Hershey's. Strawberries and cream. Lovely. It's so smells like strawberries and cream as well. It's like, oh my God, oh, it is. It's like, oh, there's a little ice cream cone. Can you see? People do this, don't they, when they're showing things? Does it make it clearer? Or is it just one of them things? Anyways, I'll see when I edit it back. When he was in prison for his most recent short break, he was diagnosed with antisocial personality disorder by a psychiatrist. So it's taken all this time in and out of prison, and, you know, so he's now got this diagnosis. You would think that might help. I don't know. No. There's no point. No. He also took this short break in prison to learn how to barber. I knew you were wondering that. Like, why is it called the Boozing Barber, Sophie? Halfway through the video. Now you know. On his release from prison, he would open his own shop. I mean, that blows my mind. Back in the day, you just like, oh, I'm going to do this. Like, they just did stuff. It's so hard to do stuff now. Like, where did he get the money? Was it a loan? What happens there? I don't know. Just feels so easy. Like, do you remember in loads of stories, old stories, they're like, oh, today I'm going to be this. Today I'm going to be a banker. Oh, they just do shit. I don't get that. You can't just do that now. I can't just walk into Barclays and be like, I'm just going to be a banker today. No, it doesn't work. I might try. So he opens his own barber shop. Doesn't sound like he did much barbering. He basically used the shop as a bit of a front, I think, for huge drinking parties. And again, the same old behaviour was creeping back in. I say creeping back in, he never stopped, Sophie, stop it. The same behaviour just carried on. So he basically would entice women that were down on their luck or in need of money, and he would entice them with alcohol, money and drugs into the shop. And then they would have these elaborate, massive, like, drinking parties. Where did the money come from? I say that, but I kind of know. So he would basically get these women so drunk that they would pass out. He probably did awful things to them as well, but he would also steal their stuff. And then he would steal their stuff, what little they had, I'm guessing. I mean, how did he get money like that? Maybe it was the banking. Maybe he was still doing that. Anyway, he'd put all their stuff in the window of his shop and sell it. What? So what happens? They wake up and they're like, I've been robbed. It's in the shop window. If you want it, buy it back. What? Honestly, this guy. Brazen. On December the 15th, 1984, he would claim his second victim, Patricia Thomas. She was found dead at his barbershop. Again, she had a blood alcohol level of 0.51 or 0.51, whatever I'm saying it right. 6 months later, in the June of 1985, there would be a third victim, another Patricia Andrew. Her blood alcohol was 0.79. Whoa. And then in October of 1987, there was another victim, Vanessa Lee Buckner. This case would prove to be pivotal. Vanessa went to a hotel room with Jordan and they got drunk together. 6 a.m. the next morning, Jordan would leave that hotel room, and at 7:40 a.m. he rang the police anonymously to report her death. Clever old police. They traced the call back to, I think, the barber shop, but I could be wrong. There was another story that said it was traced back to another hotel room, and he was staying there. But either way, they traced the call back to Jordan. I don't need to say it, but he wasn't charged. They went and they questioned him, but nothing came of it at that point. But there was some suspicion raised in all of these other previous cases, even though the two women that died at his barbershop, he even called the police himself and be like, oh, there's someone's dead. At his shop. What's going on? Do you know what I mean? Like, why? What? Stop drinking with all these women, maybe. Stop having your parties. Do you know what I mean? One person dying should have been enough. I've got heartburn. It's that frickin' mince pie. One too many. So, same story. In the autopsy, it was found Vanessa's cause of death was ruled as an accidental death from drinking too much. However, This time, Vanessa had bruising at the tops of her arms. Suspicious. And when they spoke to Vanessa's mother, she was adamant that this would not have been the case, that she would not have drunk that much because she rarely drank a drop of alcohol. So, yeah, the mum was just like, no. She even the police spoke to all of Vanessa's friends, family, close people to kind of corroborate this story that her mother had given, because you know what mums are like. Their kids can't do any wrong. But then all of these other people came forward and said, yeah, Vanessa didn't really drink. So it was really out of character for her to even be the case, and such a weird cause of death for this person. There was enough suspicion that the police were like, okay. And they've done nothing really up to this point. Like I say, because these women, most of the women were Indigenous and poor or prostitutes, he got away with it, and the police just didn't give any of these cases much time, sadly. At this point, they were sort of, let's just put him under surveillance and see what goes down. I love that. I love surveillance. Although I would be so scared if I was ever actually doing it. I'd be crap as well. When you have to lie or my face, I just can't do that sort of stuff. Like that, literally. You'd see it all over my face. So the police set up in a room next to his barber shop to listen in. Maybe they bugged the place, I don't know, they did stuff. And they would often hear him goading women on to drink more. And say, if you drink all of that, drink it up. If you drink all of that, I'll give you 50 quid or dollars or whatever it is. Beside the point, he was offering them money to drink more and drink faster and stuff like that, just being a pig. The police followed him for 6 weeks, and in that time they intervened 4 times and no doubt saved the lives of those 4 women. They had to. What are you going to do? Listen to him kill somebody? So he was basically making people drink themselves to death. It was just awful. And now, on the 4th intervention, on the final intervention, they walked in and they found him on top of a woman, kneeling on the tops of her arms. Do you remember I said about Vanessa having bruising at the tops of her arms? And literally pouring vodka into her mouth and down her throat while she was unconscious. This is when he was arrested, and this is when he was charged with Vanessa Buckner's murder. Thank you, please. His trial was in 1988. All I could think was, please do not tell me that he gets 2 frickin' years. It felt like every time he got any sentence, it was 2 years. 2 years? 2 years? Yeah. And then served 6 months. Oh, God. So I was just like, can we skip to, what's he getting? More on that in a moment. He admitted to giving Vanessa too much alcohol, but he said it wasn't his fault that she died. Definitely didn't admit to sitting on her and pouring vodka down her neck. He said that Vanessa was alive when he left, but that as he left, he watched black liquid pour out of her nose and her mouth. So, just leave then. Yeah. So he must have been guessing at 7:40 when he rang the police that the fact that he'd not intervened when he saw black liquid pouring out of her face, that she had by that point died. What a kind soul. The judge said that Jordan was, quote, a predator who used alcohol as a deadly instrument of choice. Charges were reduced from murder to manslaughter, of course. You wouldn't expect anything different in this case, but they couldn't prove there was an intent to kill, not without a reasonable doubt anyway. He was sentenced to 15 years. Woo, you're saying? Would have liked 25 or more. But it was then reduced to 9 years. Why? And get this, right? The vein will pop. It was then reduced further and he only served 6. Absolutely beyond me. So, in 1994, Jordan was released from prison and put on probation, and this probation had some quite strict rules. He had to stay on the island. He was not allowed in the red zone, which included sort of bars, pubs, things like that, so nowhere that served alcohol, or hotels. And he could not meet with women anywhere that alcohol was being served. So these were the rules of his probation. Jordan would spend the rest of his life breaking every single rule of his probation all of the time. All of the time. he would spend the rest of his days in and out of prison. He was always in the red zone, always in bars, pubs, hotels, always. In 2004, he was caught plying a woman with too much alcohol again in a hotel again. She was taken to hospital, but she did luckily survive, and he was acquitted of the charges because there was a lack of evidence. Feeling like I should have had the gin. Jordan died of natural causes on the 7th of July in 2006 at the age of 74 years old. What a case. I just can't believe it. I cannot believe it. You hear so many cases where people are in prison for 100 years for something like a cannabis charge or something. And then you just think, whoa, this dude, he was clearly... it blows my mind. I almost feel like, is there a conspiracy? Was he was his investment banking? Did he know some people up high? And I honestly don't know. There's nothing about that. That is pure speculation on my part. But it just feels odd, doesn't it? That he just, whatever. And I can't bring myself to think, oh yeah, but all of the women were, sex workers or Indigenous women, so the police didn't care. Really? Does that... I don't want to know that that's real. That just breaks my soul. So it's just crazy to me. Just crazy, that whole case. Yep. I didn't drink any gin today because I didn't want to, out of kind of respect to the victims, because they didn't choose to... he killed them with alcohol, didn't he? Basically, let's be real, that's what he did. So I didn't fancy drinking a gin, really, thinking of that. Didn't even finish my mince pie in the end. Got heartburn. I hope you have a wonderful New Year's Eve, whatever you do. If you enjoy it and you are out or seeing friends or celebrating at home or whatever, and you see in midnight, I'm happy for you, and I hope that you thoroughly enjoy it and have a good old time. If you are like me and you are planning on PJs and hot beverage and going to bed at 10 p.m, I'm with you too, because that'll be me. One thing that has made this time between Christmas and New Year better for me is just how well the channel is doing, how well Sin and Tonic is doing. It makes me really happy. I never thought at the beginning of this year that this would be a thing, particularly. I thought I'd give it a go, let's see what happens. I might not like it. You don't know until you try, do you? I thought, I don't know, because I can be quite lazy, to be fair. I really can. And yeah, I didn't put much thought into it back then. I just thought, I'll just see how I feel. And then, yeah, the minute I started to enjoy it with some money that my grandparents left me, I bought my camera. And I always love that because I love my grandparents very much and they would have been so proud of it. And yeah, all my setup and everything. And I've just really enjoyed it. All of it. There's nothing that I don't like. And especially on a Friday night and a Saturday morning when I speak to everybody in comments and things like that. I think I get to everyone. And I just find it brilliant. It's such a nice community. Everyone, for the most part, is really, really lovely and kind and wonderful. And I like it when people have a little chat with each other as well. It's like a little community of love. And I like it. I'm never going to stop. Never going to give you up. Never going to let you down. And that has made 2021 special and wonderful. And I feel like having something that I'm really proud of has definitely helped with the post-Christmas blues. Oh, maybe Sin and Tonic has saved my... to be fair, I am still a little down. I just hate Christmas being over. I just don't like it. Have a wonderful New Year. Please, whatever you do, tea or champagne, you rock it. And I will be here next week with another true crime story and my other Christmas mug of gin. Love you all. Thank you for the best year ever. Bye.